John Clarke, Brian Dawe and a rare audience with the Reserve Bank Governor.
Glenn Stevens, thanks for your time.
I would rather not express pleasure, Brian, but if I were ever to do so, this is an excellent example of the type of circumstance in which my traditional reluctance may be dropped.
Yeah, you raised interest rates this week, Mr. Stevens.
Yes, in the context, Brian, of a broader statement about the macroeconomic factors bearing on what currently obtains as the international situation, and very much to be read in that context.
Would you mind just moving it along a little bit? We haven't got all...
I could perhaps increase my alacrity, Brian, by 25 basis points.
That'd be terrific, if you wouldn't mind. Look, now the opposition has pointed to the interest rate rise as proof that the government's stimulus packages have overheated the economy.
Yes, the government's stimulus packages were nevertheless very useful and well-judged measures, Brian, without which there might have been broad-spread panic in the community.
Yeah, oh, you would say that though, wouldn't you?
Why would I say that?
Well, you're employed by the government.
If I'm simply doing what the government wants me to do and what the government says, Brian, how can it successfully be argued that I'm being forced to take action as a consequence of the failure of government policy?
Well, that was going to be my question.
Yes, it's a good question, Brian, and there's no good answer to it. Either we are one entity or we are two.
Well, you're two separate entities, though, aren't you? Obviously.
Good, Brian. I shall continue to come into work.
Yeah, but the government, however, could be asking you to nudge up the interest rates a bit.
And why would they be doing that?
Well, the stimulus packages have had their effect. Now it's time to take some heat out of the housing market.
No, it seems to me, Brian, in the light of your view, that you'd be well advised to get the government in here and put that to them.
Well, we get the government in here all the time, Mr. Stevens. It's just hard to understand exactly what they're saying sometimes on this matter.
Tell me about it.
Well, so you agree with the opposition?
As I understand it, Brian, the opposition are meeting next week to find out who they are.
But surely the point is, if you're putting up interest rates as you are, the stimulus packages might have been a bit over the top. It follows, doesn't it?
Monetary policy and fiscal policy are both dynamic, Brian. Both of them are changing all the time. They are moving in the context of one another and in broader macroeconomic contexts. To use a metaphor, Brian, they are not unlike Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers.
Apparently they didn't like each other.
They didn't have to like each other, Brian. They had to look beautiful when the music started and they began to dance together.
And one of them has to do it going backwards in high heels.
I'd rather not discuss directly the role of the RBA, Brian.
Why is that?
Well, because we live in a country where the entire savings pool, Brian, is invested in the domestic housing market.
Yeah, well, we're decoupled, aren't we?
Decoupled from what?
Reality.
Oh, I'd rather not discuss the role of government either, Brian.
Thanks for joining us.
Got to be a bit careful when I'm out.
I'm still caught with going backwards in high heels. That's the program for tonight and the week. Don't forget State Line tomorrow. We'll be back with the 7:30 report on Monday.